City's leading news program with Deuces Rogers, meteorologist Cecily Tynan, and Jim Gardner.
The National Transportation Safety Board today released an enormous amount of information about last May's crash of an Amtrak train in Philadelphia. 8 people were killed, hundreds were hurt when the train derailed at Frankfort Junction on May 12th. But the question is, how much do the disclosures today really help us understand what happened? Action News reporter John Rollins is in Center City, Philadelphia. John?
Well, Jim, a quick read of the data would indicate that it would rule out any technical or mechanical problem in this crash. So the focus remains on the engineer. At first, he had no recollection of that critical time when the train accelerated to a dangerously high speed. 6 months later, though, the indication is he recovered some of his memory, but he could still not explain how that train reached a speed of 106 miles per hour. The NTSB released a series of video stills today from the speeding Amtrak locomotive as it tipped off the rails at the Frankfort Junction curve, disconnecting from its overhead power lines. Today, investigators indicated there was no evidence of mechanical or equipment failures with the locomotive, the tracks, or signals. As for the man at the controls, engineer Brandon Bostian, blood tests show no evidence of either alcohol or drugs in his system. A check of his cell phone shows it was not in use when the train was operating. It said Bostian fully cooperated with investigators, speaking with them twice. In May, just days after the crash, he said he had no recollection of what occurred after passing North Philadelphia Station and the crash site several miles up the line. But in November, he did recall parts of the portion of that trip. He spoke of adjusting both speed and brakes, but added, the memory from there is very vague. The only word, and I hesitate to use the word, dreamlike, because it sounds like I was asleep, and I don't believe I was asleep at all, but kind of a foggy memory. 2 Philadelphia-based attorneys representing victims and families going through the more than 2,000 pages released today, both skeptical of the newfound details from Bostian.
And the problem remains his changing story, which started with, I have no recollection whatsoever, and now becomes, I have memory of what occurred, but I mysteriously have a gap as well.
We certainly have our own questions which we would like to ask him and intend to ask him under oath. We can already tell from the statements that there are glaring inconsistencies.
So what now? The NTSB says it's done with its fact-finding. At this point, it will be up to its investigators to look at the facts that were released today and to try to come up with a probable cause. The hope is they will share that probable cause, basically what happened, at a hearing sometime this spring. Live in Center City, John Rollins, Channel 6 Action News. Jim?
Thank you, John.